Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Steeler Dude 11 here, and I am back with another video. Today, I'm going to do the post-game analysis video of Michigan at Wisconsin. Alright, so this was a terrible game for Michigan. Obviously shown that they are not as good as people said they were going to be back in the offseason. Michigan loses this game 35-14. Wisconsin completely dominated Michigan on the ground, definitely on the ground. I knew going into this game that it was going to be very difficult to stop Jonathan Taylor because he's obviously one of the best running backs in the nation and could be a Heisman Trophy winner this year if he keeps playing like he has been. He did get hurt during the game, though, but it was only a minor injury. He ended up coming back in anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Michigan, the biggest problem in this game was the offensive line. Literally, the offensive line, the worst I have ever seen. Now, this is a group of individuals that people back in the offseason said that Michigan was going to have one of the best offensive line they've ever had in school history. Well, that's obviously false now. Michigan's O-line, like I said before, the worst I have ever seen ever. They couldn't do anything. Patterson, McCaffrey kept on getting hit continuously over and over again. It's just a terrible game. Wisconsin, on the other hand, they could do anything. It was very easy for them in the first half to do what they wanted. First time since the 50s or something, since Wisconsin went 3 straight games with only allowing 14 points or less. Because in their past 3 games, Wisconsin, like their first game, they beat South Florida 49-0, and a couple weeks ago, they beat Central Michigan 61-0, and both teams had a bye week last week. So Michigan had 2 weeks to prepare for this Wisconsin team, and obviously, I guess 2 weeks wasn't enough. Heck, maybe 2 months wasn't enough for this team. Wisconsin is looking a lot better than last year. 2018, Wisconsin went from going 12-0 in 2017 to finishing 7-5 in 2018. They're 3-0 right now. Most likely they could win the Big Ten, and if they do, then I'll be happy. I don't care who wins the Big Ten this year as long as it's not Ohio State, because I'm sick and tired of them winning it every year. And also because I'm a Michigan fan. Michigan fans hate Ohio State, and Ohio State fans hate Michigan. It's a typical thing of a rivalry. The referees in this game were terrible on both sides. Like, they missed some missed calls for Michigan, missed some calls for Wisconsin. I'm not saying this because I'm a Michigan fan, but the refs did seem a bit biased towards Wisconsin because they were missing some calls for Michigan that were a bit obvious. Like, going into the fourth quarter, Patterson threw past Tariq Black in the end zone, and he did drop it, but they missed an obvious holding that the Wisconsin cornerback had on on Tariq Black. It wasn't him. It was Ronnie Bell had a diving catch at one point, which they ended up overturning it and said it wasn't a catch, even though it was an obvious catch. I don't know what deal was there. Another problem was that the referees were taking like forever to blow the whistle, like on some plays. Like if there was like a pile up, like they would take like 10, 15 seconds to blow the whistle, even though they should have done it a long time ago. I don't know what the deal with these refs were. 2 Wisconsin defensive players were ejected for targeting and will not be able to play in the first half of next week's game. The first targeting call I didn't think should have been targeting because the Wisconsin player didn't do it intentionally, but the second one definitely was. McCaffrey already had his knee on the ground, and therefore you cannot lead with the crown of your helmet or your shoulder and hit the quarterback in the helmet if his knee was already on the ground. So that was an obvious targeting. The first one shouldn't have been targeting because, yes, he did hit him in the helmet, but it wasn't intentional. And he looked like he tried to stop himself from doing it, but he ended up doing it anyway. McCaffrey did get on that second targeting call. McCaffrey got hit hard, man. That was a terrible injury. McKeon got hurt. He hyperextended his right knee when he scored that touchdown, and those hurt, man. Like, I did it. I've done it a couple times, like, not serious, but sometimes I accidentally hyperextend my knee and they hurt, like, really bad. Anyway, so let's go over some stats now. So Michigan's leading passer was Shea Patterson. He went 14 for 32 for 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Was the leading passer for Wisconsin was Jack Coan. He went 13 for 16 and 128 yards. Didn't throw a touchdown though. Rushing yards. Michigan's leading rusher was Dylan McCaffrey, who had 3 carries for 21 yards. And Wisconsin's leading rusher was, who else? Jonathan Taylor. 23 carries, 203 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Michigan's leading receiver was Ronnie Bell. He had 2 receptions for 81 yards. And Wisconsin's leading receiver was Garrett Groshek, who had 2 receptions for 38 yards. Go over the scoring summary, how the scoring went. With 8:35 in the first quarter, Jonathan Taylor ran it 1 yard to take a 7-0 lead. And with 2:43 left of the first, Jonathan Taylor ran it 72 yards to take a 14-0 lead. With 6:40 of the second, Wisconsin quarterback Jack Coan runs it 1 yard to take a 21-0 lead. Then with 57 seconds until halftime, Wisconsin's quarterback Jack Coan runs in 25 yards to score, make it 28-0. 5:13 of the third, Wisconsin's John Chenal runs it 2 yards, take a 35-0 lead, and that is the last time Wisconsin scores in this game. 2:08 left of the third. Michigan quarterback Shea Patterson throws a 6-yard pass to tight end Sean McKeon. And then for the 2-point conversion attempt, Shea Patterson throws it to Tariq Black to make it 35-8. Then with 4:56 left of the fourth quarter, Shea Patterson throws a 5-yard pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones to make it 35-14. The 2-point conversion attempt failed, and that made the final score 35-14. Wisconsin going into this game had a 71.3% chance to win, and then as you can see, as time went on, it was obvious they were going to win. Wisconsin had like a 99% chance to win in the mid-third quarter. It went up to 99.8, but then it just stayed 99.9. For the rest of the game, until they actually won the game, go to the box score. For Michigan passing, already went over Shea Patterson. Dylan McCaffrey went 3 for 8 for 40 yards. Joe Milton went 0 for 2. Wisconsin, Jack Coan was their only passer in this game. Michigan rushing, Dylan McCaffrey had 3 carries for 21 yards. Christian Turner had 6 carries for 17 yards. Joe Milton had 2 carries for 6 yards. Zach Charbonnet had 2 carries for 6 yards. Ben Mason had 1 carry for 3 yards. Shea Patterson had 3 carries for -1 yards. Hassan Haskins had 1 carry for -3 yards. And John Runyon had 1 carry for -9 yards. That was when Patterson tried to lateral it back to John Runyon, or maybe it was somebody else. But even though that play shouldn't have happened because Patterson's knee was down before he did lateral it, but that was another missed call. So I forgot to mention overall for passing, Michigan went 17 for 42 for 259 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I forgot to mention Milton did throw a pick. Michigan rushing 19 for 40, 2.1 yards a carry. Longest run was a 9-yard run by Dylan McCaffrey. Receiving for Michigan, Ronnie Bell had 2 receptions for 81 yards. Nico Collins had 3 receptions for 66 yards. Tariq Black had 3 receptions for 57 yards. Sean McKeon had 2 receptions for 24 yards. Nick Eubanks had 3 receptions for 20 yards. Donovan Peoples-Jones had 1 reception for 5 yards. Christian Turner had 1 reception for 4 yards. Chris Johnson, or maybe that's his name, I have no clue. Cornelius Johnson had 1 receptions for 3 yards. Zach Charbonnet had 1 reception for a loss of a yard. And another problem with the fumbles. They continuously fumble again. 3 fumbles this game. 2 of them were lost. Ben Mason or John Runyon did fumble, but it was not lost. It was covered by Michigan. Ben Mason fumbled on their first drive of the game, and Patterson fumbled. He was hit from behind as he was about to throw. Khaleke Hudson, Michigan's leading defensive player for tackles in this game, had 7 solo tackles, a sack, and a tackle for a loss. Now let's go over for Wisconsin. Only 1 passer. Go to Wisconsin rushing. Already talked about Jonathan Taylor. Shaw had 3 carries for 53 yards. Groshek had 4 carries for 40 yards. Watson had 13 carries for 31 yards. Cone had 7 carries for 12 yards. A.J. Taylor had 1 carry for 11 yards. Chenal had 2 carries for 5 yards. Shipper had 1 carry for 4 yards. And Stoke had 1 carry for 2 yards. So the team had 57 carries for 359 rushing yards, an average of 6.3 yards a carry, and 5 total touchdowns on rushing. For receiving, Groshek had 2 receptions for 38 yards. Cephas had 2 receptions for 36 yards. Ferguson had 3 receptions for 28 yards. A.J. Taylor had 3 receptions for 13 yards. Davis III had 2 receptions for 8 yards. And Jonathan Taylor had 1 reception for 5 yards. No fumbles on Wisconsin. They did. Orr and Burrell both recovered 1. Wisconsin's leading defensive player was Sanborn, who had 5 solo tackles, a sack, and 2 tackles for losses. Zach Bond, on the other hand, had also had a sack and 2 tackles for losses as well. And then that's just the play-by-play. So let's go to the team stats. Michigan, worst third down efficiency I have ever seen. They went 0 for 10 on third down, 3 for 4 on fourth downs, though. Wisconsin went 5 for 13 on third down, 3 for 3 on fourth. Michigan had 15 first downs. Wisconsin had 25. Michigan had a total of 299 yards, and Wisconsin had a total of 487. Michigan had a total of 259 passing yards, 17 for 42, 6.2 yards a pass, but 2 interceptions thrown. Wisconsin had a total of 128 passing yards, 13 for 16, 8 yards a throw, no interceptions. Rushing, Michigan only had 40 yards rushing for 19 rushing attempts, only 2.1 yards a carry. Wisconsin, on the other hand, had 359 rushing yards, 57 rushing attempts, and 6.3 yards per rush. Wisconsin leaded the game with penalties, had 9 penalties for 69 yards. Michigan had 3 penalties for 45 yards. Michigan had a total of 4 turnovers in this game. 2 were fumbles lost and 2 were interceptions. No turnover for Wisconsin. Michigan had the ball for 18 minutes and 53 seconds. Wisconsin had the ball for a whopping 41 minutes and 7 seconds. All right, so my final thoughts about this game. I think Michigan is terrible. They're terrible. I'm being honest, they're terrible. I've never seen, actually, no, that's a lie. This is the worst I've seen Michigan perform since they played, I would say maybe Penn State in 2017. People are, what about Ohio State? Well, Michigan still scored 39 points. Wisconsin had a 35-0 lead at some point. Then Michigan would score the next 14. Michigan's probably going to finish 8-4 now or 9-3. They're going to get blown out. Actually, no, they're probably going to finish 8-4. They're going to get blown out against Penn State. They're going to get blown out against Notre Dame. They're going to get blown out against Ohio State. Where is this offense that people continuously talk about during the offseason? Like, oh my God, Josh Gaddis is going to bring greatness to Michigan. He's going to be like the best offensive coordinator Michigan has had ever. And so far, Michigan's offense last year is looking a hell of a lot better than this year. Like, oh my goodness. If Michigan continues to play like this, then they're going to have an 8-4 year, maybe even 7-5. Anyway, next week, Wisconsin is at home against Northwestern, and Michigan is at home against Rutgers. At least Michigan's going to win that game. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already. And I will see you tomorrow when I do the post-game analysis of Steelers versus the 49ers. What I think about that game? I don't know. The 49ers have been looking a lot better than they have been. San Francisco's expected to win that game by a touchdown, and I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.